Hi everyone, and welcome to another episode of Small Talk. If you're new to the channel, this is the series where we take it a bit easy, we slow down with a cup of tea. I've got peppermint and licorice today.
Got English breakfast.
And then we talk through some infrequently asked questions, questions
our
that
IAQs.
our subscribers have put into the comments. And then we go through usually 5 smaller box or filler games. Today, they're a little bit bigger than a small box game. They're not so small games, but they're all of them kind of play in under an hour, and they're more of a lighter experience. And so, yeah, excited to talk those through. But as always, we will start with talking through our postcards.
Yes.
Because when we hit 5,000 subscribers, we asked people from all over the world, all of you, to send us a postcard for our wall. So our usual studio has all of these beautiful physical reminders of where everybody's located in the world. But they're still trickling through. So
and we love it.
We love it. Every day we go to the post box and there's, you know, from a new destination that we want to. It's basically a map of where we want to go as soon as we get out of lockdown.
Exactly. This is like our very own Lonely Planet kind of tracking experience of what's going to happen as soon as we're allowed out of the country. All right, so the first one is from Beach Mountain in North Carolina. Now, this one comes from Graham. And Graham says that he loves the channel, particularly Small Talk. So hopefully you're watching this one and you're getting to see your postcard. This is such a beautiful postcard. And I imagine it's a beautiful place as well. It's got like the general store. And I love those sort of super picturesque sort of like town, like almost when it feels like it's sort of stuck in time, like a capsule of time. And it just looks beautiful. So thank you for sharing that one with us.
Thank you, Graham. And the next one comes from Mary, and this is a picture of it's a painting of a Utah landscape you can see here, which is absolutely beautiful. And Mary says that they live in South Central Utah, close to a lot of national parks and wild country. And the postcard says, "Say hi to Boston from Honey, Henry, and Marcus." So thank you. Boston says hi. He's probably wandering behind
I think he probably
the video.
Like, video bomb
backwards,
a couple times.
backwards and forwards. Thank you so much, Mary, for taking the time to send this. Can't wait to put it on our wall.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now, the next one is a pair. So we've got 2 postcards from Los Angeles. And this is from Kirk, who says, interestingly, he was looking for a almost risque postcard that he could find in West Hollywood.
In WeHo.
In WeHo. Says, interestingly, you can't take 2 steps. He said you can't take 2 steps without tripping over a tourist camera strap. But it was impossible to find postcards.
Who says postcards anymore?
Well, you know, us. And so he's like, well, so I had to just kind of settle for these more generic LA landscape. So it's got the snow, I think, what's it called? The Snow Leopard Mountains and the background of downtown LA, which is so beautiful when you see like the sort of the mountain range in the background.
And then all the palm trees in front of that, like such fond memories of being in LA.
And then the other one is the Walt Disney Concert Hall. Was this renamed recently?
I'm not sure.
Yeah. Well, I always felt like it always reminds me of the Sydney Opera House.
It does,
it's got that sort
architecturally.
of, that architectural vibe and of the wedges. It's not quite wedges, but we have been there.
And LA, obviously, well, maybe not obviously if you're new to the channel, but we were meant to get married in LA in 2020. We've been engaged for quite a while. We picked that exact moment to plan our wedding, and unfortunately, of course, like many things, it got cancelled.
But eventually
we'll get back to LA.
And thank you for sending these.
Thank you so much for sending those. Can't wait to put them on our wall.
Yes.
And I have a set of 3 vintage postcards, and these are coming from Steve, who, if you're, if you're usually in the comments section, you will find Steve in the comments section. He has been supporting our channel for a long time, so thank you, Steve. And as always, one of the first people to comment on every video. And Steve said that he had been waiting to find the perfect postcards and wanted to send us postcards of places that are really special to him and his family. And so I've got 3 here. One of them is Cape Cod, and we've never been to Cape Cod, but Steve gives a really wonderful description of all the things that you can do in Cape Cod. And I have heard, to be honest, I have heard about Provincetown, probably because that's where our friends in New York go to. It's a bit of I think it's a little bit of a gay mecca, Provincetown. But it sounds like there's lots of things to do and see in Cape Cod. And, Steve goes there a lot with his family. So thank you so much. It's lovely to be able to see, even though this is a vintage postcard.
Yeah, it's 3 vintage postcards.
Yeah, it's so beautiful.
Yeah.
And then the next one is a picture of the West Side Highway and the Hudson River around where the George Washington Bridge connects New York and New Jersey. Yes, please. Thank you. We often go to the Cloisters, which is the medieval art branch of the Met Museum that's located in Fort Tyrone Park. The card view is very close to the perspective of the Hudson from gardens at the Cloisters many decades earlier than today.
Yeah, look at those cards.
That's somewhere that we haven't really visited, or I haven't. Have you when you were there? No. Okay, and it sounds really cool. And the third one is an image of Hunter Mountain from that same 1930s time period. Hunter is a ski resort, and Steve actually resided there when him and his wife first met, and so it's a really special place to him. So thank you so much for taking the time not only to find postcards but to find ones that are meaningful to you, and these vintage pictures, they're awesome, and I can't wait to get them up on the wall. So thank you so much for that, Steve.
And I have one last one. How cool is this? This is the Gator Park in the Florida Everglades, and it's holographic. I don't know if you'll be able to see it. It's like giving me 90s binder vibes. Remember you had like those like hologram type cards or just anything hologram.
Hologram was so big
back then.
Yeah. I think you could get like hologram Tarzos in your packets of chips.
Yes.
So cool.
Yes. Cool.
Back then, maybe.
This is still super cool.
Probably not back then.
It's full nostalgia. This is I remember when because it's quite thick as well, obviously, because it's got the kind of the cover, and I was like, what is this? And then when I saw it, I was like, that is awesome, because it's just like that 3D.
I wonder how that's going to show on camera.
Yeah, I don't know if it'll actually come through very well, but hopefully. I'm just trying to move it and see if it. Yeah. So this one is actually coming from Ernest. So thank you so much. Also, Ernest says that he finds the videos, watching the videos, always very uplifting, no matter what's kind of going on in the world, which is really lovely. And thank you.
Thank you. We try to keep.
And I found this postcard very uplifting.
I found it very uplifting too. All the postcards have been such a joy to receive. Yeah. We've actually received over 100 postcards now, which is just phenomenal.
It's so cool.
And it's just the background. I just think I appreciate that even when I watch our videos back, I can see like all of these people represented, all of you who are really special to us. If you still want to send us a postcard, please do. I'll drop again the details down in the description below. But for now, we'll move on to some questions. We've got a few IAQs or infrequently asked questions this week. As usual, I haven't told Maggie what these questions are, so you can always get the raw, unedited Maggie response to questions.
Organic. It's just fully organic response.
Okay, so first of all, Tim, who's also in Australia, asks, excluding our games that we have to review in the piles that we have around for review, how many games do we keep in our collection, and what's our rationale for that number?
I don't even know. I haven't counted.
Recently, I haven't counted either.
I really need to do a stock take.
We do need to do a stock take. We definitely need to cull some games and sell them. But we typically, the number in my mind is 200. We try and keep, and probably it's more like 250, but we try to keep around that number. But the rationale, for me at least, is I don't want to have a game in our collection that is just going to sit there gathering dust.
Yeah, if someone's going to be able to play it and let it have its proper life.
Let it be experience and let it bring joy to people who are going to love it more than we do. So if a game, it just is one that I feel like I wouldn't want to get off the shelf for any occasion.
I would say the only exception would be if you're a collector and you love having that collection or completing some sort of set. It could be because of a designer or a publishing house or whatever it is. But a lot of the times, when we have far too many, you end up not even being able to display them. Like they end up in piles in different places, and so that's not as great.
And a lot of the time we get asked, a frequently asked question is, can we have a look at your collection? And at the moment, as I always respond in the comments, our collection is just everywhere. It's
everywhere.
In every cupboard, every drawer. There's piles of games in every room in the house, and it's just so disorganized. We are working on putting them all together on a shelf, and then we'll probably be able to do a proper stock take and work out just how many games we have. But to answer your question, Tim actually says that he keeps a collection of only 20 so that he can remember the rules easily and just always be able to teach them. And I think that's really smart, because it just means that you can come back to those time and time again and never have to like go through the process of learning them again, because the longer they stay on the shelf, the more you forget how to play them.
I don't know if I'd be able to cull it back to 20. Like that is a solid, that's a great
we wouldn't be able to agree on 20 either.
But also, I wouldn't be able to, I don't think I'd be able to keep 20 that then, because I feel like I would be too emotionally attached to some of them. Even when I'm kind of going through like top 10 that I do for this or top 10 that I do for that.
Yeah.
I'm like, this is just like one snippet of, so I think I'd really struggle. But good on you if you can.
And there are games.
That's discipline right there.
I think Tim was actually also talking about a game like Just One, and that's a perfect example of a game that exists in our collection but not for us. Like, if it, for us it's not really like heavy enough or interesting enough, but it's perfect for a party situation or a situation where people don't know each other very well. And every group we've brought it out with have had a lot of fun with it. So does that have to be my top 20? Do I have to keep that in my 20?
That would be a difficult choice. I have to, call back.
Exactly, But anyway, thank you for that great question, Tim. Mindy asked a more lifestyle question, but what do we like to cook? And what do we cook every day or for special occasions?
Oh, well, I feel like you're the foodie of the house, really. Probably what we cook the most is salmon.
We cook a lot of salmon. We actually have like our version of like the meat and 3 vegetable staple that we have in our household would be a salmon bowl with like Chinese broccoli with omelette, and usually with some kind of seaweed, whether that's furikake, which is like a Japanese rice seasoning, or just some fried Korean seaweed. So we probably eat a lot more Asian food than anything else, which is probably a bit of my influence because I'm the one that cooks. But I think that what's really interesting to me, and this is like a learning over the last year of making content, it's like the more that I get into board games, the less I get into cooking. And like before board games, cooking was my obsession. So I have a sous vide, I have like all of the baking equipment, even though I'm not good at it, like bread making baskets. I've got a smoker, and I really love smoking foods as well. I've got all sorts of gadgets, and I used to kind of go through different phases of cooking as well. So there would be like different cuisines, like I'd be all about Indian food and just obsess and buy everything to do with that.
You've never been into baking. Baking is probably the one area that you've never really...
Baking is what I try, and because I don't have a sweet tooth,
I do.
I can't appreciate the outcome as much, I think. Maggie definitely has a sweet tooth, but then she gets a bit grumpy at me if I bake something, and then you're like, now I have to eat all of it.
Yeah, because then she doesn't eat it, and it's just the two of us. So it's like, oh, great. Like, now I have a whole cake that I need to eat.
Yeah, but I do love cooking, and I really love just kind of everything to do with cooking, actually, and food.
We have a lot of rice, probably. Like, rice is the foundation of most dishes.
We have a 5 kilo, like, bag of rice on our bench at all times, and the rice cooker is almost always on.
It's a proper workout.
Before anyone asks in the comments, the brand of rice cooker that we have is a cuckoo Korean rice cooker, which sings to you when it's done.
So good. It's like,
and sometimes I accidentally turn it into Korean and I can't understand what it's saying.
Yes, that's pretty hilarious when that happens. But yeah, it does this whole, when it's about to steam, it like does this whole like choo-choo train thing. It's like, and then it's like it says something in Korean, and then it goes. And so it's pretty eventful. It's
eventful. But it makes Great rice, perfect. A bit fussy with my rice.
I can't appreciate the rice. It's like whenever we have it, like we make it in different ways. I'm like, oh yeah, it's rice. And Amy's like, no, this is like, she's that rice connoisseur.
I do love rice.
Yeah.
Anyway, thank you for asking. Mindy says that she likes to experiment with flavors and cuisines, and yeah, all about that. Love hearing all about different food adventures. And then Aaron was talking about the fact that we had spoken in the last episode about musicals, and wow, I was really surprised at all the people in the comments talking about how much they love musicals as well.
Yeah.
And I was thinking,
is cross section?
Is it that people love board games and musicals, or is it that people at ThinkerThemer
love? Maybe it's a bias. What do you call it?
It's a skewed sample of board gamers that we have over here who happen to also love musicals. But thank you everyone for sharing your thoughts on those musicals. And just before I go on to Aaron's question, two people, Stephen and Kirsten, in the comments recommended that Maggie and I watch a show called Schmigadoon.
Oh, yes.
On Apple TV. And it's a kind of a parody on musicals, and it's about this couple that find themselves in this place called Schmigadoon, and they have to kind of participate in all of the musical numbers, and it's really funny. And
it's really cute.
Yeah, I hadn't heard of it, and I'm enjoying it so much, and we're watching it together every night.
Through it,
yeah, so thank you so much for sharing that. Back to Aaron. Aaron said, okay, we've done our favorite musicals. What are our top 3 films as individuals and then as a couple? Now, Maggie,
I had already answered this in a Discord question before.
But also I was going to say that Maggie studied filmmaking in New York.
So it's extremely difficult to, for a film lover, it's just one of those painful questions because like, how do you choose? How do you choose? But I had already gone through this process, so I already have like top of mind what my choices were. And it's a really bizarre, eclectic collection, but it includes things like Trainspotting. I love Trainspotting. I love a mockumentary from the 90s, late 90s, early noughties, called Drop Dead Gorgeous, which is incredibly dark, but and it's now a bit of a cult classic. I think it's really difficult often to like get your hands on it, but I just love it. I just resonated with it so much. What else? Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf? That's more the screenplay that obviously then got the play that then got turned into a movie. I also love movies like Waking.
Bonus round.
There's more. Yeah, there's like those would be like the top 3, but then like the honorable mentions like Waking Life, which is it was shot as a live action movie, but then it was animated over the top of it, and it's all these like crazy philosophical discussions, and I just love it. And I Heart Huckabees, which is again kind of like in that similar vein. What about you?
Well, mine, as with my taste in music, are way less cultured than that.
Cultured?
No, well, in the vein of everyone groaning every time I mention Mariah Carey, as just about my only musical influence in my life. My top 3 films would be, I have to say, My Best Friend's Wedding. I absolutely adore that rom-com. I guess, it is a rom-com. Yeah, and I love Julia Roberts, and I did in the 90s, child of the 90s. But that movie, Rupert Everett in that movie, I could, at one stage, quote the entire movie, I think, from start to finish. I just absolutely love it. And you know when you have a movie where it doesn't matter where you sit down, at what point in the movie it is at, you just get hooked and you sit there and watch the whole thing? That is My Best Friend's Wedding for me. And I love that she uses like a real 90s flip phone. So when you watch it now, it's like she's got this
so cool back
huge
then.
phones. So that is probably one of them. Another one would be The Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. I love that. And of course I was a big Jim Carrey fan in the 90s, but that's obviously one of his serious roles. And I love the concept of that movie. Like, for me, life is all about connections and people, and this idea of like, if you could erase memories of painful experiences, would you? Like, I just really, I don't know, it really resonated with me, that film. And the third one would be, I think I'd have to give it to Kissing Jessica Stein.
Classic.
Which is a kind of an LGBT classic film. centering around like a woman who is, you know, coming to terms with her sexual identity. But then there's like a whole host of movies in that realm, like But I'm a Cheerleader. Like I actually used to work at a video store. And it was one of my favorite jobs. It's not too dissimilar to reviewing games, because people would come in, they'd be like, I love this movie. Yeah. And then you'd be like thinking, okay, if you love this movie, then I'll recommend this to you. And so I used to collect DVDs, as everybody did. And a lot of mine were of the like kind of queer realm. So that's probably my top 3.
But what about collective movies that we love?
Oh, collective movies that we love? Yeah, that's a hard one.
That's a hard one, because
we have very different taste. Yeah. I tend to now steer a bit more towards, like, I'm probably the one that will be like, let's watch an art house movie or a more serious movie. And actually you're the one who's like, let's watch a light rom-com. So we've kind of like...
I've always been into rom-coms though. Like
but it's a bit of a switch from our favorites.
We also don't watch a lot of movies, usually. No. Like we tend to, even though we both love movies, I think more recently we've kind of moved away from movies.
Yeah, I think everyone has, because there's so many incredible TV series as well.
To the point where it's like a movie's like, and then what happened? It's like we only get 90 minutes.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, then what happened to the character? I was just getting started with that character. So now we tend to watch more TV shows together. Yeah. But even our TV taste is very different, I would say. So we try and find something. You know, without a doubt, we watch RuPaul together. Yes. And then we usually have 1 or 2 shows that we're watching together. Yeah. But thank you for that great question, Aaron. Charles asked a question in back chat last week. We covered a game called Wicked&Wise. And Charles said, if we had instead called our channel Wicked&Wise instead of ThinkerThemer, who would be who?
That's a great question. I'll put it to you. Who would you say is wicked and who would you say is wise?
No, I think you're just trying to not say that I would be wicked.
This is bait.
She's just baiting me to answer the question. Honestly,
set up.
I think that, well, no, let's be honest. 100% of our friends would agree that I would be wicked. Because Maggie is one of those annoying people that like everyone just believes is super nice all the time.
And I'm super nice most of the time.
And she mostly is. So it's hard to argue with that, and that always makes me feel like the evil,
like the wicked,
evil one in comparison. Okay. But you're also very wise, but I would also say that you're probably very just spiritual in general. Yes, and so you're more of a dreamer, which isn't really captured in that. Like, more.
Yeah. I do love wisdom. Like, I do love learning from wisdom and like chasing after wisdom. I don't know if that makes me wise. But I don't know if I would, I wouldn't resonate that much with wicked. I very rarely have like a wicked sort of.
Way too nice.
Yeah.
So anyway, that.
More vanilla than that. Yeah. It's interesting that the wise one is not the thinker.
Are you saying I'm not wise? I don't think anybody
I'm not saying
said
that you're not wise. You're very wise.
We're wise about different things.
Yeah. Controversial.
Thank you, Charles. And let's see what else I have here. Anya says, what is our favorite, this is kind of related, what is our favorite thing about each other in or outside of gaming?
Ooh, favorite thing about, again, it's like, how do you choose one thing?
About me or about yourself?
No, about you.
Thanks.
I'm going to think about me. It's so corny. I always tell her this, and she always gets so embarrassed. But I just genuinely love your face.
Oh my gosh.
I love your face.
That is so embarrassing.
I love looking at it. I find myself going, you're so pretty. That's very embarrassing, but it's very
thank you.
True.
I'm probably going red now.
But also, and that's very that's a superficial thing.
It's nice though.
I mean, love it.
It'd be better than if you liked me in spite of my face.
Yes, like if I didn't have to look at your face, it would be so much easier. No, I love your face. But also, I think you're so loving. Like you have such a loving, like nurturing sense about you that is like, and that's everyone in her life would 100% agree.
People are important to me. Yeah. Well, let me see. What's my favorite thing about Maggie? Maggie is very, takes everybody as they are. And that is like had a profound impact on me in my life. But it also, I think, is true of the friendships that she has. Like, she's such an eclectic mix of friends. And it's because she really finds a way to appreciate people for who they are, which means that you can always feel really comfortable in Maggie's presence. And I think, you know, people would say that she is wise from a very spiritual, very in touch with like what's important in life and what matters and being yourself. And so I really appreciate that about you.
Nice.
Yeah, and your face is okay too.
You'll do. This face will do, I guess.
Oh, this is so nice. Thank you, Anya, for that question. Anya says that her girlfriend is so understanding, patient, and wants to see her happy, which makes her want to be better and be happy every day, which is so lovely.
Yeah.
And yeah, I guess Maggie makes me also want to be better and happy most of the time.
And I feel like I am pretty patient.
You are very patient, although not in games. So the things that I love about her in real life are not always true in games.
It's like games can bring out my shadow self. It's like, and that's why I use them as like an endless source of self-development and personal growth treasures. It's like, where did that come from?
Where did that emotion
I need to do some work on that. Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
So saying thank you, Anya.
Thank you, Anya. Yes.
And I think we'll do one more question for today. The final question is coming from A. Frank, which is, do you like Codenames Duet, or is the co-op element a turn-off? Now, I'm not going to answer this right now because we have it in our stack of games today.
Spoiler alert. Yeah.
Yes, so we'll talk about that in detail. But that's a great segue. Let's finish off with these IAQs and move into our games.
All right.
So the first game that we're really excited to talk about today is Rolling Realms, which is a new roll and write coming from Stonemaier Games. It's going to be available for pre-order soon. We're very lucky to have an early release copy here. I'll talk you through what it's all about to begin with. In this game was originally a print and play developed by Jamie Stagmeyer, and this game has now been put together in a obviously purchasable box, and it's going to come with all of the whiteboard markers that you need and all of the different elements that typically were printed before. I know that Jamie put a lot of thought into this game to make sure that the game was able to be played across Zoom during the pandemic and that type of thing. So a lot of people may have played this, but we're going to talk, we never played the print and play version of it. But this copy of it comes with these amazing big like tarot card size cards that have all of these mini roll and write kind of activities on them. And they come together in a game that centers around all of the different realms of the Stonemaier game universe. So if you're familiar with Stonemaier games, you'll see all of kind of your favorites represented here. So there's like a mini game that's to do with viticulture. There's a mini game to do with tapestry, to do with pendulum,
the Society, which is really Red Rising.
Euphoria. So all of the games are covered off in this game. And what you're going to be doing is, over the course of 3 rounds, you and your opponents are going to be randomly choosing 3 of those realms to put in front of you. So they are 3 cards that have little mini games on them, and as well as a resource card that is going to be able to be used to kind of keep track of how many resources you're collecting along the way. Then you've got these 2 giant dice.
They are gigantic.
The dice are enormous, huge, and they're so satisfying, even though sometimes when I throw them with a little bit of gusto, they would bounce out of the dice tray because they're so big, but they're so fun. Like, I find it really humorously big. But obviously that means that everybody can see it really easily around the table. But what you're going to be doing is rolling these 2 dice and very simply taking those 2 numbers and writing them down onto your round tracker, and then applying those 2 numbers to 2 of the 3 realms that you have in front of you. So the tension in this game is the fact that you can't get everything done. Across those 3 little puzzles, you're going to have to be kind of allocating the numbers in a way that gives you the best opportunity to collect the most points from each of those realms. You're also going to be triggering resources, which then go onto that resource tracker, which allow you to do things to break the game. So for example, you will be able to change the die value, or you might get a bonus die to use on the third realm that you haven't used in that round. And so it's very clever because no two games are really the same, because you're bringing together 3 separate puzzles and everybody's working on those 3 same puzzles. And then when you finish that round and you move on to the next round, you draw 3 more puzzles, and the way that they come together, or they like kind of the combination of the puzzles, is always really unique and provides you with kind of an interesting puzzle to work through. The other thing that Maggie has done a video on this game.
Yes, addressing the solo.
Yes.
So there's a lovely mini golf.
By Automa Factory.
Yes, by Automa Factory, mini golf campaign mode. And I realized I am a real sucker for a campaign mode. Now, with it, it's then this is what I said in the video. It just makes it feel like all of these realms are like Lego bricks. And then through the campaign, you have 18 holes as the mini golf, and each hole is a challenge, a different challenge. So it's going to dictate, you know, for this hole, you need to use this combination of realms. And these are the conditions for winning, and a minimum score usually that you need to get. And so it's so clever how much variety you can get out of the same, you know, set of cards. And it's hours and hours and hours of fun. And so the idea is you have a par for each one. So it's like the number of attempts that it should take you to hit it. I am incredibly bad at it. So often I was going well above par, just like in real life golfing. Which we love. Like we actually do enjoy golfing. Golf,
but I want to talk about the multiplayer experience as well. This is the kind of game, it's very relaxed to me. It's kind of like you're having a cup of tea and you're just filling in the puzzle to the best of your ability. But it's fairly straightforward, because you only have the 2 numbers and you can only place them into the puzzles, and you're just trying to achieve as much as you can. The resources add a nice element to it. But there isn't a lot of like extension in your turn in terms of like the comboing out of effects. So if that's what you like in roll and writes, there's probably not a lot of that here. It's also fairly low player interaction as well. So it does feel a little bit like just multiplayer
interaction,
solitaire. But there are elements to like, I think particularly if you're a fan of Stonemaier games and you can appreciate the little nods on each of those puzzles to the original games. Like, you know, we're big fans of viticulture, and the viticulture card, I just love when that comes out, because, you know, you are kind of using a die to create grapes, and then you're using another die to turn that grape into wine. And, you know, Pendulum has the sand timers. And so there's all these like beautiful nods to kind of the back catalogue of Stonemaier games. I wonder if like other people who haven't experienced those games would enjoy kind of the theme of that as much, but the puzzles themselves are really interesting and different to each other, which does make it a really kind of relaxed, fun experience. And I think you mentioned in the solo video that in this game you also, for any leftover resource that you have, you get 0.1 of a star or a victory point, and so you end up with like scores that have a decimal point, which I actually really like, because you know, someone gets 31 and the other person gets 31.1. It's like it makes it really close. But I really enjoyed this. It's for me, it's a much lighter experience than other roll and writes in our collection. So for me, it's like kind of a true filler. Or one of those late evening games where you just want something in easy breezy.
And it plays really quickly.
It does play really quickly. And so
No, that's it. Rolling Realms.
So that is Rolling Realms. It is going to be available for pre-order soon, so keep an eye out for that on the Stonemaier website, and we'll link to that below in the description. That is Rolling Realms. And the next game that we're going to talk about is back to the question about Codenames Duet. And I actually got the question and went out and bought Codenames Duet specifically to answer the question, because we own the original, but this one is a little bit different. Do you want to talk about Codenames Duet?
Well, we should probably talk about Codenames, the game. In Codenames, you are trying to, you've got a rows and columns of words, and a lot of them are pretty random words, and thematically, some of them are meant to be agents or spies. That is No, no, it is just abstract. And so the idea is that you've got this little key code where, one person's going to know which of those cards are the agents, which of those cards are assassins, meaning that they should not be guessed. If someone guesses them, then you've been exposed and it's an immediate sort of fail, or, you sort of take a hit. Sort of thing. And so what you're trying to do is you're trying to get your partner, it's played in teams, so you're trying to get your partner to guess by giving them a code word that will help link some of the words that you want them to guess and a number. So for example, I might say animal 2, if there are, if one of the words is, mosquito and the other one might be leopard. And so hopefully that clue doesn't make my team partner think that, the assassin word, that might have been hopefully something not related.
Like could have been zoo, and then you would have made a mistake because they've guessed zoo.
So that's essentially what the game is, the regular game. And in this one, it's very similar, but instead of it being 2 teams, you're just playing co-op. So it's like you're kind of taking turns. Usually you spend the whole time getting one person to guess, and in this one you both are trying to get your partner to guess, so you're kind of taking those turns.
And so Codenames Duet is a cooperative 2-player only experience. You can play it with more people, but it's meant for 2 people. And talking about the original Codenames game, Codenames is not a game that we particularly love. Maggie, you don't really love word games.
Word games, I don't really enjoy them in general. It's not
I think I was trying to pinpoint what it is about Codenames that I don't particularly enjoy, because I really like the cleverness of the mechanics. I love the idea of like having to link the words together in the most efficient way possible to get people to guess a whole host of things. But the way that plays out in a game, in the game itself, I don't find particularly fun. Like, I don't find it an enjoyable experience. And I think some of that comes down to the fact that, well, there's 2 things that I don't like about Codenames. One is that there's a lot of, there's a bit of downtime when you're waiting for the other team, but also in the old Codenames game, or the original, you only play one role. So you're either the person giving the clues or you're the person guessing the clues. And for me, you don't get kind of enough of variety of like what you're doing in the game, which usually means that people want to have a second game. So then I've got to play a second time because they want to swap roles. The other thing is that I've had some negative experiences, I think, when who you're playing against have a lot of in-jokes, or like if you're playing with a couple and their clue is something like yesterday 3 and you know that no one else is going to be able to gain anything from that, because it's just something that they experience together, which is kind, and it's fun if you're that couple, but it's not so much fun for everybody else. It drags on a little bit long for me, and I don't know why, but I just get really impatient with this game. Codenames Duet does address a couple of those things. First of all, it means that you get to play as the person giving the clues and guessing the clues, which is a lot more fun. And it's just the 2 of you, so you can lean into those like things that are going to help you pick those clues, and not kind of worry about everybody else at the table getting really frustrated at yet another like Harry Potter reference or whatever the case may be. So I enjoyed this more. But then the co-op part of it is like, how we feel about co-op. So
I think for me it was more just the fact that it's not a type of puzzle, like word puzzles or that kind of word connections. It's just not something that I enjoy. So then I'm not necessarily having a good time. I'm just kind of like, oh yeah.
Yeah, but if there was a bit of a competitive edge to it, I could maybe get into it a bit more. But because this is co-op, unfortunately probably won't stay in our collection. But if you enjoy Codenames, I know a lot of people who love Codenames who actually love Codenames Duet even more, and probably because of the fact that you can just get it to the table with 2 people, you should check out Codenames Duet. Now the next game that I want to talk about today is Meadow. So Meadow is a game that we've been wanting to check out for a while, and this game, if you are kind of like us and you don't really, lean into the sci-fi or fantasy, there's another running theme in this hobby, and that is, the natural world. And Maggie, you love games about farming, but there's a lot of people who really enjoy games that depict kind of like nature. And
wildlife.
Games like parks and kind of the beauty of everything that is around us. And if you're into that kind of game, then you should definitely check out Meadow. But Meadow is really interesting mechanically as well. And I want to explain a bit about how the game plays. So the board or the center area that is set up is a market of cards. And these cards are going to be drawn from 3 card dispensers which come in the game, and you actually build them. And they're really, really cool. Great use of cardboard. And they're going to be turned over from those, and people are going to be drafting from that center area. And when you're drafting, these cards are all depicting things that you're seeing as you are wandering out in the environment. So they might be man-made things such as houses, or they could be critters and animals that you're seeing along the way, and insects and fungi. And then you're also going to be seeing different types of terrain, which you're going to be able to draft back into your center player area. Now, on your turn, you are basically using these little like kind of arrow action selection tokens, and they are going to be placed on around the outside of this grid, and they dictate the number of steps away from that token that you can pick up a card at. So it might say a 3, which means that you've got to angle it correctly around the grid so that you can pick a card that is useful to you 3 steps away from that token. And you only get, in a 2-player game, you get 5 of those to be able to allocate either there to pick up cards or to the campsite area where you get to use the bottom action on those tokens. I really should find out what the actual name is for those.
I don't remember what they're called, actually.
The little arrows.
They're like a little stake. It's like a little stake or a directional
thing. Like a
thing.
fence stake is what it looks like. But those little arrows, they have on them, basically they're multi-use, because either they're going to dictate which numbered card you can take in one area, or they're going to give you an action in the other area. But what is really interesting is the cards that you're drafting all have symbols on them, and these symbols are going to be used to be able to play them into your meadow area, which is the area in front of you, as well as the surroundings part of your player area, which is above that, which you put kind of the landscape-oriented cards. And you're going to be playing these into your player area in order to get victory points. But there's an order and a logic to the way that this works, because as you're placing animals in there, for example, you need to have kind of the insects first so that the birds can eat those insects. And there's a natural order to the way that these animals are looking for different foods that they can eat. Also, the critters need to have different types of landscape available to them to exist in the meadow. And so really this game comes down to drafting the right cards and then playing them in the right order, because you might have a card that needs a fence symbol and a berry symbol, for example. But when you place another card down, it might cover up your berry symbol. And so you really need to think long term about what is the order that I'm going to play these cards in. And to add a little bit more spice into the mix, in the campsite area, you also have a variable setup where it's going to show you combinations of different symbols. And that's a bit of a race element, because as soon as you have the 2 symbols that are depicted around the circle, you can place a scoring token there as well, have the opportunity to do that. And so there's a lot of things to just think about, and this game was surprisingly thinky.
It's one of those games that I don't often find myself with analysis paralysis, and I did multiple times with this game, and I was trying to reflect on why that was, and I think partly it's because on the surface it felt so thematic that I'm like,
it's beautiful.
It's beautiful. Well. It's got a beautiful table presence, and the cards, the illustrations are really kind of reminiscent of that whole, you're going on a little walk and seeing all these beautiful things and kind of collecting all these beautiful things. But the actual gameplay is quite abstract. And I started out by going, oh yeah, here's this thematic, link in that, you're putting this bird over this worm or over this beetle because it makes sense that, that's what it would eat. And so it's kind of covering it. And that's often as far as it kind of got. A lot of the times then the sequence of those symbols was very abstract in terms of like symbol for a symbol's sake. And with the same with the campfire area, it was like you've got this combination of symbols, which essentially kind of would translate to, at the end of the day, you could go to the campfire and brag about you were the first one to see these two things, and then that's how you get your claim of that. But even that is fairly like, it's random, like it's a random pull out of the bag, the combination of things.
Yeah.
And so I think I thought, interestingly, I enjoyed my time playing it, but also with the you're kind of building a bit of an engine so that you can get some of those other cards, which are going to give you, more points and stuff. But because you're also covering stuff along the way, I never felt like I truly got to build an engine. Yes, you have a lot of different terrains, but a lot of the times the cards, it's not just the terrain, it's like all these other symbols, and some of them can be very hard to find. And also it can, and this is my experience, I could get very stuck with going, well, the combination of symbols that I need is not even available on the market of cards that I can get. And so I often
find myself, to pivot.
Yeah, I know, but I often find myself so stuck and just genuinely paralyzed.
Well, the other thing is,
I have no idea what to do next.
There is a bit of a safety net there in that you can at any time discard 2 cards from your hand to act as a wild symbol, to use as a symbol which allows you to play more cards into your Meadow space. But yes, it is very hard to get extra cards in this game. Yeah,
but then if you do, then you have even fewer cards. So I often kind of kept finding myself going, how do I get more cards? So I found at one point, I think, the first time that we played, I was like, this is so pleasant. And at one point we both actually said, it's like, this is so nice, like at the exact same time.
Yeah.
Because it is sort of beautiful. But then on repeat plays, as I was trying to kind of get my head around the strategy, and you can do a couple of, this game I'm going to try and just focus on, a variety of lands and see how that plays out. I did find myself getting stuck. And again, this could be the way that my brain thinks, because I couldn't really lean into a thematic logic to help me.
Yeah, but I want to talk about that because I really enjoy this game. I love this game and I won't be getting rid of it at any stage. I really enjoyed it because, yes, it comes down to this abstract thinking about the different symbols. That's definitely correct, and that's going to work for some people and not for others. But it may not be thematic entirely in what you're doing, but the setting, as distinct from being a thematic mechanically, you know what I mean, integrated theme of mechanics, the setting is beautiful, and that was enough for me to really just immerse myself in this game. And the puzzle, the more I played it, the more I just thought, this is so clever because it's so tight and competitive, and it's so satisfying to me to pull off a combo of playing out all the cards in my hand, as well as getting some of those campfire bonuses, and also just using that multi-use kind of stake token thing.
Oh yeah, so you have the option of top action, bottom action.
Yeah, super
where
clever.
You're going to place it.
Yeah, where are you going to place it? And, just the options that are provided to you in this game, I just think that it's a lot of people are going to really enjoy this puzzle. And we've been in lockdown, so we've only played it at 2-player. Yeah. But the 2-player of it is excellent.
Yeah,
I think it's really great. I can see that the one benefit of having a multiplayer game would be more turnover in the cards that are available to stop you having that problem where you were there was nothing I could do. Yeah. But because there's that kind of distress action of discarding 2 cards to get an icon that you need, you are able to pivot away when kind of the cards aren't coming out in your favor. There's also an action that allows you to pick up straight from the deck as opposed to the market of cards. So I just think this is a really wonderful game. On top of that, it's just beautiful. So the puzzle is really sound. It's a really beautiful game.
I played it solo as well, so I can talk to the solo mode. The solo mode is it's a fairly simple implementation because you've got this little kind of central tile token, and you're using all the rest of all the other color stakes or tokens get kind of shuffled, and you allocate different colors to different sides of this mini board that is representing that big market board. And so what you're going to do is you're kind of randomly going to pick different stakes of those different colors. Depending on the color that you pick, it'll tell you whether it's going to be taking cards from the bottom, left or right, and then the number of it will also then determine, which card is going to be taking for itself, which is just another way of mimicking an opponent randomly taking elements or taking spots in the campfire as well. I found that, again, because it's not really a game where there's a lot of player interaction or take that, aside from maybe if you know that there's a card that someone really, really wants, you take that. But it's not often that happens. No. It actually recreated the experience of the multiplayer fairly well, at least the 2-player game, fairly well. I did find a little bit, it's straightforward in that all you're really doing is, finding that color and then taking that card. I did find it still a little bit distracting because you are kind of facilitating that turn. And so when it comes back to my turn, and I was already kind of struggling with analysis paralysis, going, okay, wait, what? So what was I doing? Oh, that's right, I was trying to get this or that. It is a good way of trying out different strategies. I got the highest score that I've ever gotten. And I think that was in big part because the campfire element is where I got a lot of points, and Amy usually speeds there and gets all the points, and then I'm left out going,
I really love that campfire puzzle. Yeah. I really love thinking about what I need to get done, but also having that side objective of racing to get those.
So when I was playing with the AI, then I was able to beat the AI to that, because the AI is not really interested in those campfire objectives, so you kind of, you have them all to yourself. Yeah. So I'd say it's an interesting, again, it's because it wasn't the type of puzzle that I thrive with. It wouldn't be something that I'd be choosing to play solo, but if you do like it, if you do like that sort of thing.
So interesting, because this is a game that appears to be very thematic, but actually myself, who's more into mechanics, is real.
It's a mechanic Trojan horse. It's coming to you. I'm so thematic, and it's beautiful. It's very, it's got a beautiful table presence, beautiful scenery.
But it's just really, such a clever puzzle.
It's a really clever symbols.
Clever puzzles that causes a bit of AP. The other thing in this game, there are some secret envelopes. And I think this is really cute, because in the rule book, when you achieve certain things out in your real life, you get the opportunity to open these envelopes. So one of them is, for example, when you see the first sights of spring, and we are coming into spring here in Melbourne, and we were out walking the other day, and I saw all this wattle. This Australian bright yellow wattle, and of course I was sneezing, but that was the sign of spring. And I said, well, we can open that envelope then, and so we opened it up, and it just brings it doesn't add, it's not really an expansion, it's just some extra cards, and the illustrations kind of depict that theme.
I believe that some of them will have additional
little things.
Rules,
we haven't achieved the rest of them. There's one that's on the eve of Christmas. We open that. So that's just a really cute addition. Really solid game. This is Meadow. So check that out if it sounds interesting to you.
The next game is an Australian game called The Gardens, and this is about the Sydney Botanical Gardens, and again going with the nature theme. In this game, we're going to be trying to design our own version or layout of the Sydney Botanical Gardens and move our visitors, so we each have 3 visitors, move our visitors across and make sure that they have the best variety or combo of things that they're going to be looking at as part of their visit. And so whoever manages to optimize that based on varying scoring conditions will obviously win the game.
This game is from Grail Games. It's actually coming to Kickstarter this week. So I think it actually might launch at the same time as this video. So this is a game by Matthew Dunstan and Brett Gilbert, who are quite well-respected designers. And yes, as Maggie was saying, mechanically, it's quite interesting because it combines, card drafting. So there's a center set of cards, and those cards are kind of placed in 3 rows. And so the rows are row A, B, and C, and that is mimicked on your player board. So on your player board, you also have
harbour, the city, and then the park. Sort of.
Sure. Thematically. So you have those same 3 rows, and everyone who's drafting from that market of cards is going to have to place a card on each of the rows. In a 2-player game, you're going to have to place 2 cards in each of the rows. So is interesting because when you're drafting, you are making a choice, but you're also obviously taking cards away from a set of cards that everyone is going to have to draft from. So there's limited cards and you kind of have to go after what you want to get. And that's going to be dictated by the scoring objectives, which are different for each game. There are basic objectives and then there's more advanced objective tiles. And I think the most interesting thing mechanically about this game is the way that your workers move, because after you place a card...
Not workers, they're visitors.
The visitors, sorry, the way that the visitors move. As you place a card down into your little garden in front of you, that visitor. Sorry, the visitor is going to walk over.
Because it's the new attraction. It's like, let's go check it out.
Let's go check it out. What's going on here? There's a fountain that's been installed.
Let's go.
And so they move across that row to that new card. And you score based on what that visitor sees along the way and dictated by the scoring conditions. So in some instances, it might be count up all of the same type of tree that visitor has seen along the way, and that's going to give you victory points. Or it might be the case that for a particular scoring tile, it could be for every stream that they had to cross as they walked along. And that creates this interesting spatial puzzle around where you place your cards and whether you place it on the same side as your worker, visitor. Or at the other end.
They may be a worker, and they're on their break.
They're on their break visiting. Exactly.
So we're lunch at the park. Yes.
But also you want to try and, as much as possible, make them walk from side to side in your park, because obviously the more things that they're like tramping through or hiking
not
through.
Tramping.
Not trampling. Tramping, like the New Zealand word for hiking.
Okay, yeah. Because I think of trampling as destroying along
tramping.
I don't know what you're saying.
There's no L in it.
Okay.
So you're tramping through the park, not trampling.
And not trashing.
And not
Maybe
trashing.
I'm thinking trashing, okay.
And then you're basically trying to make this visitor walk as much as possible and get their step count up. The other thing is that in this game, you can also increase the difficulty by using the player boards that have different landmarks. And these are all landmarks that you can find in and around Sydney. And when you get to these landmarks, or you cover them with your card, you're going to get another scoring bonus or benefit, or what's the word, like a...
Yeah, either a benefit throughout the game or end game
victory points. Yeah, and so that is a bit of a race element that comes into it as well. And usually it favours not walking as much because you want to build out one side of your player board, which is kind of interesting tension.
Yeah.
But overall, like, this game is very light. I really appreciate that mechanic of the walking visitor. I think that's really clever.
Yeah.
Also, it's beautifully illustrated.
Yeah, and a lot of like the types of trees, and it's got the ibis, our bin chicken. So like the visuals of it are again really beautiful.
I also really appreciate that in the rule book they go into a lot of detail about the Indigenous Australians, or the true owners of the land around the Sydney Botanic Gardens.
Yeah, it's an acknowledgement of country and the traditional custodians of the land.
Yeah, and so I just like
a bit of history as well.
Yeah, really appreciate that. As an Australian, that's really important. And really, this game, it's not a tense experience, but it does make you think. The puzzle can be quite difficult, particularly around some of those more advanced scoring conditions. I actually preferred it with the simpler scoring conditions because they make more intuitive sense.
Yes, I agree.
Easier to remember what type of landmark does what. So. For trees, it's just the same type of trees. For statues, it does something. For benches, it does something else. And you end up creating like this beautiful picture of your own garden. Yeah. And I love the way the streams connect together.
Yes.
It's just a really interesting puzzle. If that sounds like something that you would enjoy, please go and check out the Kickstarter, which is launching this week, and we will link to it below. But that is The Gardens by Grail Games.
And our final game for this week is My Farm Shop. Now, this is by Pegasus Spiel, and
and Rudiger Dawn.
Ah, yeah.
Famously, yes.
Now, I saw Rado losing it about how much he loved this game. And being a farm-themed game, I was like, oh my goodness, I need to get my hands on this. And so we did. We managed to get a copy. And I was very, very excited. And so in this game, essentially, we'll play farmers. And we're trying to have a combination of getting different goods and then selling those goods. Ultimately, whoever has the most money is the most successful farmer. Mm-hmm. Now, the way we're going to be doing this, and you're probably going to be much better explaining the mechanics, is there's going to be a lot of dice rolling and then allocating based on the number rolled. We're going to be either getting cards from a central kind of, I think it's like the market, the actual market that, the farmer's market, and then allocating them to our personal farm to kind of upskill the ways or upgrade the different actions that we're going to have access to. But then the other thing that the dice are going to do is they're going to determine which action gets activated. So it's this sort of balance between getting good actions to allow you to produce those resources, and then getting those actions where you're going to be able to sell those resources. Some of them actually have this sort of like, is it a daffodil or not a daffodil, it's a sunflower. Sunflower. I'm terrible with So sunflower that then allows you to kind of multiply the actions that if you're activating a particular
But I think the key interesting mechanic is which die you select from the dice you've rolled, because you roll 3 dice. And I just held up 4 fingers.
You roll 3?
You roll 3 dice, and of those dice, you're going to be selecting one that's going to give you a new card from the market, and then you can put that into your farm. But also the remaining 2, it's the sum of those 2 dice that dictate which one of your farm spots activates. And that in and of itself is just a constant like, okay, if I take that die, then those 2 are going to sum, which is going to activate this part of my board. But if I take this other die, then I get a suboptimal thing from the market, but it's going to activate the thing I really want to activate. So that, I think, is just a really clever decision that you have to make.
Also knowing that that's what's going to activate for everybody on the. That's right. Like all other players are going to get to activate. So even for me as a multiplayer solitaire person with this one, I do find myself kind of looking, what's Amy going to be able to trigger, and is this going to be a good thing for me at this stage of the game because it's sort of coming to the end, or it might give her a truckload of points or coin.
The other thing about this game is that there are action cards to go into your market that are going to generate resources. And so you're generating resources when the right, dice get rolled, and you are collecting these resources in your storehouse or your little farmhouse area, and you can only have as many resources as fit in that space. But then there are other cards that go into these action spots that are going to turn those resources into dollars, which are the victory points in this game. And so the next interesting layer mechanically is, at what point do you go from resource generating actions to income generating actions? And there's a constant tension of that. Or do you leave half your farm so that it's generating resources and the other half so it's generating income? The other thing is that you can get these bags of hay, I think, is it hay?
Yeah. I don't know what's in
another little token that sits kind of off your farm area, and that allows you to manipulate the die value, which does give you a bit more scope for activating the things that you need to activate on your farm. I have to say that in the first game of this, I wasn't sold on this game. I was like, I don't know, it feels a bit basic. Like, I understood how to do it really quickly, but then I was like, I don't know about that. And then we played it again, and I was like, okay, the strategy is coming together now. And then we played it again, and I was like, I'm going to beat you this time. Like, I got this. And the more we played this game, the more I can absolutely, you talked about Rado's excitement for it. I can absolutely see the cleverness of this design and just the more you play it, how it really starts to come together and you can try different things.
Yeah, 100%. I think for me it was like, first I thought, oh, maybe this is going to be, because I love the theme, this is a wonderful thematic experience. It's not. It's a fairly abstract, you're kind of collecting little things and then turning them into like selling them. And but for me, and I didn't even click until like maybe game 3 plus, where it's like, oh, I just need to remember the craps odds, and craps table, how like 7 is going to be the number that comes up most frequently, and then it sort of gets more and more rare the further away you go to the top and bottom end. And that's exactly what's happening here. And so you want to make sure that you're having those actions, a good combination of actions, close to that 7 mark. And even when I then looked at the board, I was like, oh, of course. And even the sunflower booster actions, they are diminished the closer you get to a 7, because they know that that's actually going to be the one that's going to come up more frequently. I did not click for a while. And that made it, and so I actually ended up shooting myself in the foot, because I had, or I over-indexed on selling actions, because I got so excited. It's like, oh, I'm going to be able to sell for it. And then I had no way of producing. And I said, well, what's the point of being able to sell when I have no goods to sell? And so it did take me a couple of games to go, oh, right, this is where I get the balance.
Yeah.
But then once
we both got it, it's a very fast but also tightly competitive game.
It's very close.
Yeah, I found that our scores were always really, really close to each other, and even when we both took completely different strategies. Yeah. And it's just an interesting combination of things. There's in the game itself, there are also some kind of mini expansions. So there's like farmer kind of transport tools that you can add in here that give you different benefits in the game. I really enjoyed, of course, the group objectives, which you race for, and then you can, if you achieve them first, you get more points. Yeah. I really liked that. Yeah. And that there were simple things like, just filling up your warehouse storage area the quickest with entirely full of resources, things like that.
Fully stocked.
Yeah. And I don't know. The more I played it, the more I really appreciated the design of this game. I don't think it's particularly thematic. I don't find it I don't feel like I'm in a farm.
It's pretty though.
It is pretty.
It's sort of pretty.
Yeah, it's beautiful and green, which gives you those farm vibes, but it's definitely all about the economy of exchanging things for things. And I just really love that you're building out your farm space and you can change it and optimize it as the cards come out. You can kind of be like, well, I should start collecting that resource, and therefore I need to have keep a lookout for something where I can sell that resource really easily. So this is a great little game by Rudiger Dawn, and that is my farm shop. Yeah. So we had a lot of in those games, in the bigger games where we don't usually have such big games in there, but the 3 bigger games, Meadow, the Gardens, and my farm shop. Yeah. It was a lovely week of really, because we are locked indoors, of having those outdoor
naturey. It was good. Lots of oxygen coming from the board game.
Exactly. Yeah. So they, if you're into that kind of theme, definitely check those out. And obviously the pre-order coming for Rolling Realms, check that out, and the Kickstarter for the Gardens, which will be coming soon. Yeah. But if you're still watching this video, thank you so much for tuning in each and every week. We will be, Maggie's been working very hard at her solo videos.
Yes, been enjoying those as well.
Ignited by, I think, the video with Rado has
that kind top of 10 was
inspired you to talk more about solo games or co-op games generally that you play solo or without me. Yeah. And we're still filming lots of other reviews in the background, so expect some of those this week. And we will see you next week for Back Chat. Yeah. But otherwise, bye for now. Bye.